Well, good morning. Welcome to Daily Videos with me, Pastor Michelle. Today is Monday, June 29th. And just to give you a heads up for the next week, now and through Sunday, I'm going to be sharing a little bit of my own personal story and, well, my personal spiritual kind of story. And so we're going to be doing that instead of the Women of the Day. So I'm going to be the woman... I'm going to be the woman of the week, if that makes sense. Not that my life is anything compared to the women we've been reading about, but I've not gone out and done great scientific achievements or anything like that. But I do believe my story is worth hearing because maybe it will touch someone else's life, just hearing my story. And so before I begin that, I do want to continue to at least do reflections and a little bit of Hunger Games, and then I'll kind of end each day with some bits of my story. And I'm going to kind of scatter my story throughout the entire week, and then on Sunday you'll hear the final chapter of my story thus far, because my story is still being written. And so let's before we get into that. Let's start out with some reflection from this book. My favorite sights when addressing our people as a speaker are elders smiling and nodding at words that come from our teachings, knowing that the generation behind them has been listening and will be okay, and the younger generation behind me smiling, nodding, absorbing words that come from our teachings, listening and knowing they will be okay. The circle keeps on spinning and growing stronger. It has been proven in my life that when your prayers are about gratitude for what is already here, Creator and universe always send more. Always. When you pray for what you want, Creator and the universe only hear the wanting, and that's what you create, more wanting. Be thankful. Offer prayers of gratitude for the blessings already in your life, whether health, prosperity, or productivity, and more blessings will come. To raise the sacred pipe of my being to Creator and creation each morning is to bring myself into the full realization of my size and place. I am part of the sacred energy, moving, spinning, growing, bringing everything into harmony. Without this sacred time of prayer and meditation, I am less able to do the work of each day to reach out with empathy and compassion. So let's take a moment to pray. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. So my friends, I do hope you're doing okay, and I hope you've had a wonderful week, and hope you have a wonderful week this week. And I know we're in the midst of a pandemic, so I do hope that you're able to find joy in the midst of all this. I hope you're able to find time to laugh, find time to even have peace, and even breathe. Just take time to breathe. These are trying times. As we continue to see the numbers go up, it's scary. It's hard to know exactly what to do. But just know that I have faith, at least it gives me faith to know that we are not alone, that we are going through this together. And my own personal faith in God is that God is with us through the good times and the bad. I don't know exactly why bad things happen to us, but I know, and I don't believe God makes them happen, but I do believe God is there with us. God feels pain when we feel pain. And that's part of the core of my faith. So, changing topics altogether, let's dive into a little bit of Hunger Games. All right, so Katniss and the careers, as you know, Katniss blew up the careers of food. And so let's see what happens. Where is my little ally? Does she make it back to the rendezvous point? Is she worried about me? At least the sky has shown me we're both alive. I run through the surviving tributes on my fingers. The boy from 1, both from 2, Foxface, both from 11 and 12, just 8 of us. The betting must be getting really The betting must be getting really hot in the Capitol. They'll be doing special features on each of us now, probably interviewing our friends and family. It's been a long time since a tribute from District 12 made it into the top 8. And now there are 2 of us, although from what Cato said, Pete's on his way out. Not that Cato is the final word on anything. Didn't he just lose his entire stash of supplies? Let the 74th Hunger Games begin, Cato. I think, let them begin for real. A cold breeze has sprung up. I reach for my sleeping bag before I remember I left it with Rue. I was supposed to pick up another one, but what with the mines and all, I forgot. I began to shiver. Since roosting overnight in a tree is insensible anyway, I scoop out a hollow under the bushes and cover myself with leaves and pine needles. I'm still freezing. I lay my sheet of plastic over my upper body and position my backpack to block the wind. It's a little better. I begin to have more sympathy for the girl from District 8 that lit the fire that first night. But now it's me who needs to grit my teeth and tough it out until morning. More leaves, more pine needles. I pull my arms inside my jacket and tuck my knees up on my chest. Somehow I drift off to sleep. When I open my eyes, the world looks slightly fractured, and it takes a minute to realize that the sun must be well up in the glasses, fragmenting my vision. As I sit up, I remove them. I hear a laugh somewhere near the lake and freeze. The laugh's distorted, but the fact that it registered at all means I must be regaining my hearing. Yes, my right ear can hear again, although it's still ringing. As for my left ear, well, at least the bleeding has stopped. I peer through the bushes, afraid the careers have returned, trapping me here for an indefinite time. No, it's Foxface, standing in the rubble of the pyramid and laughing. She's smarter than the careers, actually finding a few useful items in the ashes, a metal pot, a knife blade. I'm perplexed by her amusement until I realize that with the career stores eliminated, she actually might stand a chance, just like the rest of us. It crosses my mind to reveal myself and enlist her as a second ally against that pack, but I rule it out. There's something about that sly grin that makes me sure that befriending Foxface would ultimately get me a knife in the back. With that in mind, this might be an excellent time to shoot her, but she's heard something, not me, because her head turns away toward the drop-off and she sprints for the woods. I wait. No one, nothing shows up. Still, if Foxface thought it was dangerous, maybe it's time for me to get out of here too. Besides, I'm eager to tell Rue about the pyramid. Since I've no idea where the careers are, the route back by the stream seems as good as any. I hurry, loaded bow in one hand, a hunk of cold goosling in the other, because I'm famished now, and not just for leaves and berries, but for the fat and protein in the meat. The trip to the stream is uneventful. Once there, I refill my water and wash, taking particular care with my injured ear. Then I travel uphill, using the stream as a guide. At one point, I find boot prints in the mud along the bank. The careers have been here, but not for a while. The prints are deep because they are made in soft mud, but they're now nearly dry in the hot sun. I haven't been careful enough about my own tracks, counting on a light tread and the pine needles to conceal my prints. Now I strip off my boots and socks and go barefoot up the bed of the stream. The cool water has an invigorating effect on my body, my spirits. I shoot 2 fish, easy pickings in the slow-moving stream, and go ahead and eat one raw, even though I've just had the grusling. The second I'll save for Rue. Gradually, suddenly, the ringing in my right ear diminishes until it's gone entirely. I find myself pawing at my left ear periodically, trying to clean away whatever deadens its ability to collect sounds. If there's improvement, it's undetectable. I can't adjust the deafness in the ear. It makes me feel off balance and defenseless to my left. Blind even. My head keeps turning to the injured side as my right ear tries to compensate for the wall of nothingness, where yesterday there was a constant flow of information. The more time that passes, the less hopeful I am that this is an injury that will heal. When I reach the site of our first meeting, I feel certain it's been undisturbed. There's no sign of Rue, not on the ground or in the trees. This is odd. By now she should have returned, as it's midday. Undoubtedly, she spent the night in a tree somewhere. What else could she do with no light and the careers with their night vision glasses tromping around the woods and the third fire she was supposed to set? Although I forgot to check for it last night, was the farthest from our sight of all. She's probably just being cautious about making her way back. I wish she hurried because I don't want to hang around here too long. I want to spend the afternoon traveling to higher ground, hunting as we go, but there's nothing really for me to do here but wait. I wash the blood out of my jacket and hair and clean my ever-growing list of wounds. The burns are much better, but I use a bit of medicine on them anyway. The main thing to worry about now is keeping out infection. I go ahead and eat the second fish. It isn't going to last long in this hot sun, but it should be easy enough to spear a few more for Rue, if she would just show up. Feeling too vulnerable on the ground with my lopsided hearing, I scale a tree to wait. If the careers show up, this will be a fine place to shoot them from. The sun moves slowly. I do things to pass the time. Chew leaves and apply them to the stings that are deflated but still tender. Comb through my damp hair with my fingers and braid it. Lace my boots back up. Check over my bow and remaining 9 arrows. Test my left ear repeatedly for signs of life by rustling a leaf near it, but without good results. All right. So that concludes this portion of Hunger Games. Tomorrow we will finish up that chapter. But for now, I just wanted to kind of divide it up into 7 segments, a little bit of my story, as best as I could, and I'll try not to get off topic. Basically, just to let you know, what I want to do is just share my story. I want to share what it was like for me growing up in the faith tradition that I grew up in. What it was like for me struggling with my sexuality in that faith tradition. And what it was like for me finally coming out and finally reconciling that whole thing of being gay and Christian. And then my call into ministry is even a really big part of my story. So in order for me to so today, with it being Monday, I thought I would start with the very beginning. So not the very, very beginning, because I don't know much about my being a baby. But I was born in 83, just so you know, in case you're wondering. So I am getting kind of old. But I grew up in a independent Baptist church. That's where I grew up going. It was, and now looking back, I see it's independent Baptist, so it wasn't like officially affiliated with Southern Baptist, but I would say it was very close to being that type of Baptist church. And we lived about 15 minutes from it. And I do remember as a child, we were at church all the time. I mean, they had church services all the time. They had church. We went on Sunday mornings. We went on Sunday nights. We went on Wednesday nights. Then there was Thursdays. That Thursdays were devoted to going out and passing out tracts. I remember going with my grandpa many, many times on Thursdays. We had occasional Saturday things. And so whenever the church doors were open, I was there. And if I had to say one thing about my upbringing, though, I am very thankful that, because it's where I learned about Jesus. It's where I met God. I know I see God in a much different way now. But going back, I did learn a lot. As a kid, I remember they had something, I can't remember what it was called. But I remember learning a lot of Bible verses, and that was one of the things they wanted us to do. They wanted us to memorize Bible verses, and I do have fond memories as a child there. There was a lot of just really nice people at that church that kind of. I remember my family grew up. I grew up kind of poor, and many times we didn't have a lot of money for basic supplies like school supplies. And I remember there was people at that church that would go and take my brother or take me or both, and they would take us school shopping. So they would make sure that we would have supplies for the year. And then we also had people that would sometimes, because one year I remember we didn't have money to get Christmas presents, and we had a random box that was dropped off to our house one year, and it was filled with Christmas presents. And looking back, I think maybe that might have been someone from the church. Because I believe church is like a community, regardless of the beliefs of the church, even at times. A church is a community. It's like a second family. And so I do remember that. I remember going back to the church experience. Some of my fond memories are memorizing Bible verses and getting candy for saying those Bible verses. And I also remember Vacation Bible School. And funny, the only thing I most remember about Vacation Bible School is snow cones. I don't remember what we talked about. I don't remember lessons at all. I remember they were in the heat of the summer, and my mom would many times be in charge of making the snow cones. My mom and Doris is her friend at church, and they've been doing, my mom and Doris do nursery at the church, and they've actually been doing it for over 40 years. And so my mom got to, so my mom was always in charge of the snow cones. And I remember that from Vacation Bible School. I do remember going to Bible camp. I think it was called Bible camp. I don't remember. The one year I only went once as a participant, and then I went to a summer Bible camp, right? Like summer camp. I went once as a youth leader, but then I remember the time I went as a participant, and it was very awkward because I was the only person from my church that went. And I had to sleep in the same room with the pastor's wife, who I remember snored so loud. That was awkward. And then the funny thing is, there was other people in the room with us at first, and then they moved into another room. I think it was because of her snoring. I was miserable that week at that Bible camp, by the way, because I had no one to play with. It was very lonely. But I mean, I do remember a lot of my memories. I do have some fond memories of church as a kid. Most of them involve food and candy and snow cones, but that's besides the point. I don't want to go too deep into the negative stuff that happened, but I want to kind of focus on the positive. But one thing I do want to say on the negative side, this was a Baptist church. And even as a kid, the one thing I knew, even growing into, my teen years, even before I was a teenager, the one thing that was always made very clear to me was that there's a heaven and there's a hell. And there's a certain group of people that will go to heaven, certain group of people that will go to hell. And you very much want to make sure you're on the ticket to go to heaven. And the way to get on the ticket was to become born again, was to say a special prayer, and then Jesus would save your soul, and Jesus would come into your heart and live there, and you would get to go to heaven. And I was born again. I was saved when I was 7, and then I was 8 and 9, 10. But I do remember walking to the front of the church, praying, and being saved, and my family rejoiced, and I was baptized by full immersion. They dipped me completely in the water 3 times. Side note, I remember playing in that baptismal font later on. I was a rebellious kid. That was about the height of my rebellion. But just to keep in mind, that was not the only time I said the prayer, because anytime I heard messages about hell, I always felt, what happens if I didn't really mean it when I prayed it that one time? So I prayed it multiple times. I prayed the sinner's prayer. And that was part of what we did on Thursdays when I said earlier about the passing out tracts. We would pass out tracts to people, inviting them to the church, but also making sure that their soul is safe. And so as a kid, I remember that stuff sticks with you. I remember passing out whenever we would go out to eat. My parents or my grandparents would leave a tract on the table for the waitress, because you never know that waitress could be a lost soul. And so that was always very clear to me. And so that's why at the age of 7, I became saved, and why I continued to become saved. And so I do remember that. That's kind of where I'm going to leave it today. I was, and so, I'm just going to leave it there, and tomorrow we'll continue on, and we'll kind of hit some of the chapters of what happened, as I got older, and just kind of some of the messages. But I want to be clear though. I do say a lot of negative things about the church I grew up in, because there's obvious reasons too, because I was hurt, and it was a church that I suffered spiritual abuse there. I really do believe that. But at the heart of it though, it was a church that introduced me. I mean, it was where my faith began. And so for that, I'm thankful. And part of that story, even the negative parts of my faith story, are part of me, and and they have influenced me into being who I am today. And so for all the good and the bad of my story, I'm thankful for all of it, because it has led me to be who I am. And so for that, I'm thankful. And so you'll hear more tomorrow. So thanks for tuning in today. I look forward. It's nice. It's kind of nice to just talk about my past, because it's hard to fully appreciate what happens in my present without knowing what happened in my past. That sounded like it made sense in my head when I said it. All right. So God bless all of you. I hope you have a wonderful day. And tomorrow you'll get to hear more about growing up in that church. I'll share some even more intense stuff tomorrow. Just trust me. You ain't heard nothing yet. Take care and God bless.